You're listening to Double Time, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Preece.
Oh, hello. What's going on there? Hello. Shaun Preece. Hi.
I don't know how to respond to that. I think you came in too hot there, Stephen Scott. You just got overexcited. Hello, happy Thursday to you.
Oh, you didn't say it. You're going to have people complaining.
Oh, I thought you were getting sick of it. Okay, happy double Thursday, Night Managers.
Stop that, I hate it.
Okay, thank you. Shaun of the Shed on Night Manager. Give me a battle.
Do you know what it was? The reason I came in so hot and the reason I came in hot and messy was because I put my phone on to Do Not Disturb at the last second before we started. And what happens is in my ear, my machine where I play your beautiful emails from, not yours, but the other emails from our listeners, the ones I actually want to read.
Yes.
Those, not that you ever send me an email anyway.
No, I don't do emails.
But, it tells me in my right ear that my focus has been changed to Do Not Disturb because, of course, when you turn on Do Not Disturb on your phone, it changes it across all your devices.
You're losing me, Stephen. You're losing me with this
Yeah, because
story.
you've got Windows and you don't, have that functionality because it's a terrible, terrible experience.
Press Windows N, then hit space for Do Not Disturb.
But you've got to do that on top of doing that on your phone as well. So you have to go to your phone, you got to say Do Not Disturb, and then you've got to go to your PC. That's terrible.
No, I've also got to do it on my smart speakers as well. I've got to tell it to do not smart speakers as well. I've got to tell it, don't pick me up on things. I've got to tell it to do not disturb and volume 0.
Oh, dear. I don't know about you, but it's been a week. It's been a week, hasn't it? It's been tired. A week. I think we're all getting tired here because, even today, it's like it never ends.
Breaking news.
Huge breaking news today as Be My Eyes announces that Meta and Be My Eyes, of course, working together, as you know, to bring Be My Eyes to the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. It is now here. It is rolling out as of now. All the way through till Monday. So you may not have it right away, but it is coming. It is absolutely coming. So if you don't have it yet, if you can't access the functionality yet, you will be able to in the coming days. Very exciting. I'm just putting it out there, Shaun Preece. Just a little thought, but yeah, you're having to link up the devices, you're having to link the apps together. I think this would be the job of a certain Shaun of the Shed to explain all this.
I will show you how to do it. Okay, I will work on that in the next few days. And you know what? It's so easy. It's going to be cool. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it, but I've been doing the beta test. I'm going to say that much. Are you allowed to talk about that? I'm not going to talk about the experience through the beta test, but I will say this. I am so excited by this news. And I can guarantee you will use Be My Eyes 1,000 times more on the Meta glasses than you do on the phone.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
And it sounds ridiculous because, hey, you got to take your phone out of your pocket, you got to open the app, and then you got to connect the call, and then you got to hold the phone in front of you. I mean, it's hardly a hassle. But just being able to say, hey, Doodah, Be My Eyes, and being instantly connected, there's nothing like it. It's amazing.
Is that a wake word, is it? Doodah?
Doodah. Hey, Doodah. It should be, yes. But you know what I'm saying.
Yes, no, absolutely. Listen, we did speak to Mike Buckley and Brian Bashan, both CEO and chair of Be My Eyes recently, to bring you the news, the breaking news when it was announced that Be My Eyes and Meta were having this partnership. And here's Mike and Brian to explain a little bit about the partnership, but also what is actually coming down the line.
Our mission is to connect our community, right? And make the world more accessible. And Shaun, you know better than anybody because you and Stephen have been talking about this for, I don't know, years, certainly months, but maybe even years, about the need for a hands-free device to enable better, faster, easier connection to the world. And so that's the why. It's about our mission and it's about listening to our community. Look, we make mistakes like every other company, but I think one of the things we try to do well and be really consistent on is listening to the desires of the people who are using our services. And that's what this is about. And so we bang the doors down at Meta to get this partnership announced. And I'll let Brian talk about it a little bit more in a second. But the thing I want to underscore is that this is a major joint long-term development deal that we have with Meta, and the volunteer ability on the glasses is just step one. Brian can tell you some of the hellish stories about our engineer to engineer work, but I want this viewed as just a moment in time, and as a first step. We have a lot of work to do to make this a truly phenomenal experience and to expand what this means. But Brian and I and our founder Hens and our team and Meta could not be more excited.
Yeah. And just to add to the why, I mean, as a blind guy, I want to do stuff in the world. And the easier it is to do stuff, the happier I am. And yeah, I've got the latest and the greatest iPhone here. And yet try to turn over an omelet holding that, or try to hang a picture on a wall correctly, or drill a hole, or all these things. Try to move through space when your hand is tied up with a dog or a cane. The Meta glasses, I'm wearing a pair right now, are fantastic in giving you both hands. And with that, we can act in the world. And it's something that we've had requests from, and the blind members of Be My Eyes have said for so long, we need to have a hands-free solution. And when by happenstance, Meta worked with Luxottica and got these glasses and realized we just may be able to bend this technology to blind people's uses. It's not the technology that we developed from scratch, but we had such enthusiastic and willing partners at Meta. And the result is something you're going to see rolled out in the next few weeks.
So that was Brian Bashan and Mike Buckley talking to us recently here on Double Tap about the news of the partnership. But it is now here. So yes, over the next few days, you'll start to find that it will open up the opportunity for you, if you have Meta Ray-Ban glasses, to get access to Be My Eyes. This is very, very exciting news, I think.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think this is going to be... I'm going to say it. I think this is a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
It's so useful. Keep checking the App Store. Check for updates and update Be My Eyes and MetaView. And yeah, I will show you how when I get a chance. I will say this. I've been using it a lot lately, and I've been talking to the volunteers because I've been using it more than I have in the past. I feel easier. Sometimes I think I don't want to take up someone's time, or like I was walking up the shop the other day and so many cars were parked on the pavement. I didn't, if I was to grab the phone and open Be My Eyes and do it that way, I don't want to take up their time just for that. But because it was so easy to do, I find that I'm using it a lot for things like that. And I'm asking the volunteers after I make the call, and they've helped me. I say, how long have you been using Be My Eyes, and how many calls have you had? And so many of them are saying, oh, I haven't had many calls, or like, you're my third call I've been on for 18 months. And I say, does that not put you off? They say, no, I love doing it. I just wish I had more calls. And it's so funny because I'm almost second guessing myself. Do I really need to make this call? Do I really need to take up someone's time?
100%.
But the fact of the matter is that the volunteers are just wanting these calls. And I think with this move to the Meta glasses, I think they're going to see such an increase in calls.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Because, look, we don't want to put anyone off doing this because, I think it's something we do. But I do agree. I'm very similar. I often think, can I find another way to do this so I'm not bothering a volunteer? Or is this something that would be worthy of a volunteer's time? I often think that, and of course, the reality is, I suppose if someone can't do it, can't help you, they'll tell you. If you were needing a few moments of their time, you could just say, okay, no problem, thank you so much. And I know there are people who've done that. I mean, I remember hearing a story, I think I told you this recently, of someone who organized their entire CD collection over an evening, with a volunteer. They just sat there all day, just all night, just chatting away. And they had a great conversation. And, it's not a dating site. You're not going to meet someone on it, because you're not sharing personal information or anything like that. You're just having a conversation with someone you may never speak to again. But that in that moment, that interaction is so meaningful to, of course, us as blind people, but to them as well, to those volunteers who are, bear in mind, they signed up for this. That's the thing, right? They signed up to do it. No one forced the app onto their phone. This isn't a U2 album on your iPod. That dates me, but it's true.
Oh, nice little throwback there, Stephen Scott.
A bit of nostalgia.
I think you just got to be, mindful and courteous, as you should be with any call you make anyway. We need some sort of Be My Eyes etiquette, because I always say, hey, my name's Shaun. Have you got a couple of minutes to help? And then they can tell you, if one lady walked me, I made that example of I'm on a street which is slightly difficult to navigate because of parked cars. And she walked me past that, and I said, okay, thank you very much. She said, well, I've got time. If you want to, I can stay on with you. We walked to the shop and back to my house, and we were having a chat, and she was guiding me. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. I need to work on my social skills on that one, but you're absolutely right. No, I do, because you are so nice and generous with your words to people. I'm just not. It's just an internal thing. You just don't know what to say. You think, I know you're there for a reason, so I want to kind of get to the point of what I'm calling you for. But I also don't want to be dismissive of you, and it just becomes a whole other thing. But
oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But no, this is great news, fantastic news, and of course, as Mike says, it's just the beginning, and I think we all know what that means. Be My Eye will be coming down the line. But of course, that is down the line. Today, it's all about the Be My Eyes volunteers calls on Meta Ray-Ban glasses. So if you try it out, let us know how you got on. Tell us your experience. The other big story, and it's interesting today that this comes up because, I've been saying this quite a lot, that there are two big stories really in the tech world for blind people today that seems to be grabbing all the headline, all the interest, and that is Meta Ray-Bans and Glidance. And I would even add to that Be My Eyes, because they're so prominent in our community, and this collaboration proves that. So today, it's kind of fitting that we have the other part of this trilogy, and that is Glidance themselves. Now, we sat down with Amos Miller and Kyle Buzzard from Glidance, both co-founders of the company, to chat about where we were at with the whole project. And it was a long-ranging discussion, and we're going to play that interview in for you. Now, this recorded at Site Village in London last week. So have a listen to this. But first, here's how you can get in touch with Double Tap.
Get in touch with Double Tap. Email feedback at doubletaponair.com. Leave us a voicemail at 1-877-803-4567. And now you can send an audio or video message to us on WhatsApp. That number is 1-613-481-0144.
Amos and Kyle, welcome to Double Tap.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's great to be here in person, guys, with the Glide.
Well, it's incredible to be here. This is our first trip as Glidance to the UK, and we couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, okay, where are we with this? Because everyone's talking, aren't they? Everyone's talking about Glide. Where are we with this? Come on, guys, spill the secrets. What's going on? When are we going to get hands on? When can I buy one? When are you sending me one for free? These are all questions you can answer at your own time.
You want to take that, Amos?
Why don't you start, Kyle?
All right. Well, as you know, we are very much still in development, and we're committed to developing this out in the open, right? So that means that we're putting our work-in-progress prototypes in people's hands, half-baked, right, to understand what's working, what's not, because now is the time that we can actually take that feedback back into the product development cycle. So where we're at in that is we're assembling our alpha units in Boston. Those are going out for user testing and situations like this where we can have demos, both formal demo days and informal demo days at conferences like this one. We are training the software based on this custom hardware. So these alpha units have fully custom electronics that we've developed from scratch. It has custom mechanical engineering using the components that we found from the automotive industry and the supply chain that currently exists, right? So it's a custom design, and this allows us to train our software. So we're still very early in the development of the software as we think about the features that we talk about with Glide, but we're now getting these out into the open, understanding the limitations, and going from there.
So you mentioned these are what we're calling the alpha prototypes.
Correct.
Yeah, these are the alpha prototypes. So first of all, I want to say Kyle here next to me is my co-founder and head of product. He's also got a pretty croaky voice today because he has really been all day. We are now at Site Village here, and this is our first time at Site Village, and there have been lines out the door people wanting to touch the device and get the experience. And Kyle has been not only providing demos, but talking with everyone and listening to their comments as they walk, as they pause and consider, what about this, or have you thought about that, or like, just this is like an all-day thing and an all-time thing that's going on. And this is exactly what these devices are designed for. Yeah, the alpha device here has the main mechanical features as Kyle describes it, but it also gives the user the experience. And we are now very excited that we now have pretty good autonomous experience where you can actually walk with the device. It can see the obstacles. It can see the people getting in the way. It can detect the tables, the chairs, the walls, and you basically walk. It's currently a little bit, it overreacts in certain situations, and so when you give it a chance, you'll feel that it overreacts. There's lots of tuning to be done at this stage, and at the moment it only reacts to what we call obstacles that are, we basically generally use the three terms: obstacles, overhangs, and cliffs. Okay, so obstacles are things like tables, chairs, things that stick out from the ground. Overhangs are things that are up in the air, and cliffs are things that go down. Like,
like a cliff. Yes.
like an actual cliff.
The curb,
steps going down, the edge of a platform, all of these things that you really want to make sure the device keeps you away from. This device will have that. It doesn't currently have that, but the software for that has been built, and that's actually a change we made recently. We added another camera, and when you look at the device, you'll see that there's a second camera that's pointing at 45 degrees down to locate those cliffs and locate more details around the environment. So all of these pieces of technology are coming together and like Kyle said, on the target hardware, so you can really. And we are really now starting to build the actual product. These are no longer prototypes.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously the one thing that you've said time and time again, and I think it takes you to say it a few times, is that you are working with the community on this. It surprises people. It's no doubt. People are surprised by that. They hear that, okay, you're working with this, you're working with the community, you're working to build a product which is going to be, for the community, by the community to some degree. So when you get people feeding back, do you get the impression they're giving you this feedback, but thinking, yeah, they're not really going to take that into consideration because, they've already built this prototype, they're going to go rebuild the whole thing again. Are people getting it, basically, is what I'm asking.
I think it'd be great to hear what Kyle thinks, but we've been ourselves on this journey for probably throughout the time that we have been talking with you guys, about how to put something in people's hands that is clearly not a finished product. Yeah, most people haven't had a chance to play with products that are not finished. And one of the things when we do our demo days, I emphasize, we're going to share with you work in progress. That means it is work in progress. Right, it is not a finished product.
But there's a challenge there, isn't there? Because there's reputational challenge for you guys, because you're putting something out there that isn't finished, saying we're working with you on this, but people are still trying it. They're still getting their first impression today. I mean, Kyle, that's what's going on, right? People are getting that first impression. It's an important first impression.
It is an important first impression. I think that's why it's so important to set expectations and be very transparent about where we're at and let them know this is a work in progress and what to expect. Let them know that if the demo is going to start out with a controller so that we can understand how to turn with it, and then we'll switch to camera mode, right? It's about transparency. And for me in my career, I've worked on a lot of tech products, and it's always been stealth mode, right? There's a fear of IP theft and all of these things, but ultimately that leads to a lot of times an inferior product because it hasn't really been thoroughly tested and incorporating feedback from the end customers, right? So we've kind of really flipped that on its head here, and we believe that the risks that might, exist for anything as far as IP theft or anything like that are well overcome by the value that we get out of, working with the community here.
And we've learned along the way. Like I said, early on, we really brought some of the idea of putting something in people's hands. You don't always tell them exactly how it works. You just you want to see how they respond to it, right? And so on. But we've learned that doesn't hold water. We have to kind of explain exactly what it is, and trust in people to be able to use their imagination to know where it's going, to be willing to understand that this prototype was designed for this, so that you can feel that, and imagine if that was with that and that and that, then so you really have to start to really help people build that imagination.
And I just wanted to add right back to your original question.
Yeah.
I think what's been really encouraging that this is working is the fact that people have been able to see the changes, experience the differences from prototype to prototype. Since we originally kind of announced it and debuted demos at CES in January, we've gone through multiple iterations now. And granted, I will say, right, like we get a lot of feedback, and there's no way that you can incorporate everybody's ideas into one product, right? There are tough decisions that we have to make, but we really take all of the emails and we process them with AI to analyze trends. We understand what kind of value is being created for the majority of people and how we can address these concerns that people have, right? And so I think it's important that when we show up, we show progress, we show these incorporated details, and we explain why we did this versus that.
Well, I think people are noticing the progress. I mean, for sure, because it's so interesting to me when you watch the progress of the Glide development. And not only that, though, it's the people's reaction to it. Because I remember when this first, the news first broke about this new device, new mobility device, and there was a bit of, it's that vacuum cleaner, it's that toy lawnmower, Sure. And I was part of that as well. I'm not sure. It was more, I don't know if my vanity will allow me to use something like this. But it's so surprising because almost everyone I talk to who starting at that point, I'm not sure about this, it looks a bit strange, are suddenly, wow, this is interesting. And a lot of people I know have already pre-ordered after going hands-on. And it's all about the functionality that you've implemented, from the start. The fact of the matter is that this seems to work for people. So people are interested. Hence the lines that you talked about today. Right. I mean, the lines for the demo were amazing, right?
We appreciate everybody's patience if you're listening in, and we're a part of that queue. We try to get to as many people as we can, but that also means that we want to spend proper time with people, having a conversation, understanding what they want out of it, right? So it is something that as we get more devices built and we can expand our team, we can engage with a lot more people at events like this. But I just want to shout out and say thank you to anybody that did a demo with us today.
We have to talk about the video, which has, launched 1,000 questions. And that is the video, of course, of you, Amos, using Glide. And when that video was released, within about an hour, I was getting emails from people saying, have you seen this video? You've got to check out this video. Of course, the next day on Double Tap, we were on it. We were talking about it because we were fascinated by it. I know you were listening in to that episode. You heard us ruminate about it. Immediately questions were asked about, how will it cope with stairs and how is it going to deal with all of that? There's a lot of questions came out of it. What was your reaction to our reaction, as in the blind community's reaction to that video?
Delighted, excited. These videos are designed. We have a lot of people on our regular Zoom calls on a monthly basis, and people who join the community, and they're really looking for details. Yeah, and we hear a lot of the frequently asked questions on the Zoom calls from month to month. And what happens is that we're looking for ways to just to make it clearer for people, so that when we get to the questions, we can go beyond the surface level questions and go to the nuance, And so the videos in many ways reflect the questions that we get asked on a regular basis. So you can now watch the video, get a good level set, and that has really enabled us to enable the community, people who join the Zoom calls and write to us on email and everything, to to ask the more detailed questions. Okay, but when it did that, could it do this, or why did it do that, or that wouldn't work for me actually. I need more information here. Yeah, so you really, so I consider these videos to be part of the prototypes. They're prototypes in the same way that these prototypes, because they basically give you an understanding, an experience. They stimulate your thoughts and feedback. I think, like I mentioned to you in one of my emails with you, Stephen, right, about that stairs question and what information people want when they approach steps. We have had essays written from folks about that particular experience, about the dealing with overheads. Like, one of the interesting questions often comes up is, should Glide announce when it's dealing with an obstacle? And obviously you don't want the device to kind of talk to you all the time and tell you every tree that it's passing, right? But it's interesting that when it's an overhead, people actually want to know that it's didn't just zigzag for no reason. There was actually something hanging over here, right? Yeah. Like maybe the front of a store or something like that. So they actually want a different kind of information when it's an overhead. So you see what I mean? Like, now we're getting to the nuance, not just the question, hey, will it deal with overheads? But when it deals with overheads, what? Yeah. So that's really what has been really exciting to get from these videos, and I think that the fact that we are able to convey more details about the direction of travel we're going with the design, I just think helps people understand exactly what it is and what we mean.
So obviously feedback from the community is absolutely amazing, valuable to you, great for the community. But at what point do you say, okay, let's nail this down, we're not going to keep adding features and features and features? When are you going to make that decision to say,
well,
okay,
we're not adding features and features. I promise you that.
Okay.
What it's really about now is locking down the hardware, because software we can change.
Yes.
Hardware, once it's locked down, it's locked down. And Kyle can explain that, because that's really the phase that we're in right now.
Yeah, that's right. So as you know, with hardware, right, to make this a mass-produced product, there's a good amount of capital that has to be put out to invest in tooling for injection molded parts, for custom molds for the metal pieces, for the electronics. And those come with lead times on components that we have to put deposits on, et cetera, right? So we do have a timetable on the hardware, and that's going to be immediately concluding our beta testing in the January, February, March timeframe. That's when we'll kick off and make those investments. At that point, the hardware is going to be more or less locked. Now, what I would say is that we're trying to design the system in as much of a modular way as possible, meaning that the wheels can be removed, right, without tools, so that you could swap those. We can make improvements and updates and maybe different versions. The whole stem and handle assembly can be disconnected. And that allows for easier servicing, for upgrades down the road, right? So we're allowing for flexibility with the hardware, but for the most part, that's kind of the pencils down moment. And then we can iterate more on the software, the features, the user experience, and that's where these vignette videos really come in handy, and we'll continue doing those.
Now, look, we've had a lot of feedback into the show, Amos. I know you're going to come back on and spend some time with us, because I don't feel it's fair today, after the day that you've all had, to sit here and throw 1,000 questions at you from our audience. But we have had a lot of questions, so I know you're going to come back on. But there are themes that come out from the questions. One in particular, which I didn't think about, I don't know if you did either, Shaun, is hearing. A lot of people saying, how will this work with someone who has hearing difficulties as well as visual difficulties? And I think it's a great question, because, of course, blindness doesn't necessarily always come alone, right? Is that something that you've ever considered? Because we tend to get wrapped up in our bubbles as blind people. We talk about blindness almost in a box, but there are other associated disabilities. Is that something you consider in your design?
Maybe I'll tell a little story, and then Kyle can explain how we are thinking about it. But I think the first time we've really encountered hearing, it was actually in CES last year in January, and beginning of this year rather. A gentleman walks over with his signer, and he's deafblind. He's actually, his name is Musi Germer. He's the brother of Habin Germer, who's the first deafblind lady to complete the Harvard Law School. And he wasn't sure. He wanted to try the device, and his guide basically said, hey, you know, just give it a try. It might be interesting. And he said, no, I'm not sure. Eventually, he agreed to try it, and Kyle organized him to hold the handle and sort of get the device into position. And he started walking, and he took the first turn. And then he stopped and signed something to his signer. And we asked, what is he saying? And the signer says, he's saying, finally. Finally, something that I can see changing my life. Wow. And I think that's the basis of it, right? The audio is important, but first and foremost is the way that the device physically guides, connected to the ground, guides you. That's the primary communication. It's the movement, the feeling of the device, the additional haptics. Now we have the audio for the device to communicate additional information to you, for you to communicate into the device additional information. And that's where Kyle can explain how we're thinking about it from the perspective of hearing aids and so on.
Yeah, baseline will have a Bluetooth connection that can work with a variety of peripheral devices. But what we really have a lot of work to do still on is haptics and how those can be an effective method of communication, and also just what other types of inputs would be helpful in those scenarios, right? And so I think that's going to be really important for us moving forward, is to understand better the deafblind community and people with hearing loss and how it does or does not work with the experiences that we're building with Glide and how we can address those properly. And that's another reason why modularity makes a lot of sense here, right? Because if we need to develop a completely different handle that has different functionality that can plug into the same base, we can enable different experiences for different people. And we're not going to be able to do all of this all at once, right? These are going to be features and new kind of products and accessories that we launch as we go, as we learn. But we want to make that a serious commitment to address those questions and those ideas.
And one idea would be, Bluetooth hearing aids, for example.
So exactly.
Correct.
So as baseline, Bluetooth hearing aids, headphones, that's the baseline. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. We're even looking at ways that we could channel the audio through the phone rather than you having to pair with Glide. Channel the audio through the phone so that it comes in through the headset or the hearing aids you've already got paired to your phone. So we're just looking for different ways to do that, but also minimize the requirement to hear and the audio. Yeah, like it's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of talk today, as you've been doing the demos, of you explaining that haptic feedback is coming into the handle of the Glide device at some point anyway, right?
Yep. Yeah, the first version, what we're looking at now is having isolated haptic vibration areas on the left and the right side of the grip area, so they'd be vibrating into your palm. And we can isolate those to the left and to the right, and in a way that we can kind of use the speed at which they're pulsing to kind of let you know how tight of a turn maybe it wants to make. So if it's going buzz, 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 buzz on the right, it kind of gives you some feedback that the device is trying to make a tight turn to the right. And so we still have a lot of development work in how we want to use those codes and use that. But what we're planning on now is a left and a right haptic.
Well, like Amos said, it's a lot of firstly getting into the hands of the people that's going to use it. Yeah. But it's it's the nuances of that feedback, as well as audio for overheads and things like that. But also, if you're hard of hearing, how much haptic feedback do you need? Yeah. It's a
and
difficult
also
one.
If someone wears gloves, right? If they're using this in the winter,
exactly. Yeah.
That's going to create barriers and issues, right? So there's a lot that we have to still think through and test, right?
But at this stage, like we said earlier, that's kind of stuff that we can iterate and tune with software. Like I said earlier, our goal at the moment is to make sure that we have those components in the device, that they work well, that people feel them well, that they can hear them well, that they connect the headset. So all the hardware elements are in place so that the software can really start. Initially we may have a limited set of symbols on haptics, and then it could be a profile that you tick a box to say, I am hearing impaired, or I'd like a richer haptic set of symbols in the haptic, so there'll be a different symbol for a door and a different symbol for a set of escalators. So these are things that we can build out in software over time.
So the plan is for these to be rolled out from literally from next year, right? So end of next year. How is that going? How's the planning for that going? Are we on track?
We're generally on track. Yeah, I think it's an aggressive schedule, and really it's going to come down to any major architectural changes that would need to happen based on the testing, right? If these check boxes are able to be checked off, we're not having any major changes to the overall design and architecture, I would say we're still on track to hit that target.
And I would say the other really exciting element here is the pre-orders and the first 1,000 or so people who will be getting those devices in the first towards the end of 25. People are signing up, are registering, are purchasing, pre-ordering the device, and we're really planning to close pre-orders by the end of this year, by the end of 24, really to identify and start working almost intimately, personally with the people who have pre-ordered, so we can make sure that they are deeply involved and that we prioritize that initial community so that when the devices roll out, we can work with them to make sure that they're super successful, that all the problems are ironed out, as we then continue to sort of open the experience to everyone. So that's really sort of our plan of record, so to speak, and that's both the community engagement as well as the production itself.
And maybe a fun thing to announce here is the fact that we've actually committed to our contract manufacturer. We've selected a partner, and we're moving forward with them. And this is a partner that I've worked with in the past that has built and delivered hundreds of thousands of products. They're used by some of the biggest tech companies in the world, but they've got buy-in from their upper management. They're excited about this project. We've been on weekly calls for the last 6 months. And so having the backing and support of our contract manufacturer at their caliber and willing to work with a startup like us at lower volumes to start, and then the ability to scale with us, that's just been a super exciting development for us, and we're excited to announce that here as well.
These are huge milestones that enable us to have more and more confidence on the plans.
And it gives confidence to those people who have put up the money now, which is fantastic. Amos, Kyle, thank you so much for being with us today here on Double Tap. It's been great talking to you, and we'll talk again very soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We certainly are talking to them very soon. They're going to be back with us tomorrow to talk all about, your questions, quite frankly. We are putting your questions to Amos and Kyle tomorrow in a Q&A special with Glidance. You've been sending in your questions in your droves. I know lots of you have questions about how this will work. We've touched on some of the areas there, but we're going to get the answers tomorrow. So looking forward to that. I suppose it kind of falls on us now because we get a chance to test Glide. And I thought it would be kind of nice to just talk through our experiences of what we felt. Because I suppose the first question I've got for you, Shaun, is what were you expecting when you what you heard about the device and then trying the device? What was that kind of journey like for you? What was your experience?
You know what? I'm not entirely sure what I was expecting at all. But when I first got hands-on with the device, my first thought was, it's a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. It was very compact. And bear in mind, as they said, this is the alpha. They did show us a later version, the latest design, which is even more, I don't know what the word is, but I mean, compact, I suppose. It was more polished. But yeah, I was quite surprised by the size of the Glide. I could totally see, just picking it up by the handle and carrying it quite easily. That was my initial impression. What about you?
I suppose I kind of felt a little bit surprised by it because I had no idea what I was expecting. I mean, my initial impression of it was that I was going to be holding on to something with two hands. I was going to have to put both hands out in front of me and hold on to it because one of the original
mowing the grass.
Yeah, exactly. Because some of the original marketing kind of suggested that, right? And I kind of thought, oh, that's what it's going to be like. But then I realized I could actually hold it. Well, I say hold it, kind of just have it in my left hand or my right hand, and I could just walk with it. And it was kind of interesting. Now, you went first, I think. You went first with the demo.
I did.
Can't remember
I
which
pushed
way
you
around
out
we
of the
did
way.
it. That's right,
Yes.
yeah. And you got a chance to walk around with it. Talk us through that experience.
Okay, so I mean, I took to it quite easily, actually. The first thing you've got to remember is that you're controlling it. You know, you push it along. It's not self-powered. It's not pulling you along. So you just start walking. And I found it really easy to follow. Now, as Kyle and Amos mentioned, it is a little bit aggressive in the turning at the moment, and that will be, smoothed out a little bit with the turning left and right and avoiding obstacles. But I was within 30 seconds, I felt perfectly at ease and it felt comfortable to walk with. It didn't feel awkward whatsoever in the positioning. I pushed it just slightly in front of me, walking behind the device itself. It wasn't off to the left or the right. That was the first thing to sort of get in, was that you're following the device, but you're pushing it at your own speed. Yeah, I just felt incredibly comfortable with it, and I was quite surprised by that. Now, at this point, there was no audio feedback, so it wasn't saying, there's something detected in front of me. It was completely silent, and the haptic wasn't there yet. So there was someone next to me, Carl was next to me, telling me, there's a table in front of you and it's going around you. So I was trusting what I was being told, that it was doing the right thing. But I walked around quite a big circuit of the event floor there and didn't hit anything once and felt completely comfortable with it. I was shocked.
Yeah, I've got to say, I echo all that, because I was in the same way. I was kind of surprised when I finally get hands on with it. I'm expecting I'm going to have to push this very heavy machine along the road or along the path or wherever you are. In this case, we were in a hall, and I was expecting it to be heavy. I was expecting it to be difficult. I didn't really understand. I suppose it's like anything, until you actually get hands on and try these things, you can't really maybe understand how it works. I wasn't sure what was going to move. Was the whole thing going to turn left and right? It turns out that it's just the bottom part of the device that actually does the turning, right? So it's not the whole thing turning left. It's not like the handle turns as well. So you're just literally holding on, and this thing is just moving forward. It feels like it's doing it itself, but it's not. That's the amazing thing about it.
Yes, you said that.
Yeah, you feel like it is moving itself, but you're pushing it. It's like air you're pushing along. And, I go back to my point about my essential tremor. Using the cane is very painful. It's quite difficult. With this thing, I just felt like I was pushing air. I didn't even have to hold on very tightly at all. So, it was moving along. It was moving left and right when it discovered obstacles. A little bit jarring at the start, because you're kind of like suddenly getting moved left and then moved right, and then you're wondering what's going on. But you kind of, once you begin to trust it, and it's like guide dogs as well, right? You've got to start trusting them at some point. You cannot be in a position where you're trying to guide it. Although actually with the Glide, you can guide it, because there is part of that function in it. Because again, you're controlling it. It's not taking you. So, it feels weird, because you do feel like you've been taken somewhere. You kind of almost start to, put your trust into it and just assume it'll just, take you to wherever you're going. But of course, it's not doing that. It's just, it's keeping an eye on what's in front of you and avoiding those obstacles. So I think about bin day, when, the trash bins are all over the place.
That's exactly
cars on the
it.
pavement. It's just going to neatly take me around in the way a guide dog would.
It's a kind of weird mix of passive and direct guidance. It just feels, you feel like you're in control, but at the same time, it is guiding you around those obstacles. Now, of course, this is all great and it's a great start, but we need to know how confident it is and how reliable it is on the obstacles that it detects, and it's not false detecting things. At this point, in that situation, it's very hard to tell. We were in an event in a hall, and there's lots of tables around. That was basically, I think, most of the obstacles. But still, I felt very comfortable, and I think that's a big step in the way and a reason that people are so excited here.
But that was the kind of the best bit about it for me. The demo wasn't in a place that was designed specifically for the demo to take place. Now, it is important to say that in some of the, well, actually certainly in the first part of my experience, and the same with you, they were remote controlling the device. But there was a point where they took off remote control and kind of let the AI or let the device do its thing. And the autonomous part kicked in, and it actually was working really well. And I didn't walk into anything.
No.
I mean, what kind of made me laugh a little bit, because there was a bit where Kyle and Luke and Amos, I think, and probably you, because you didn't mean to, got in the way of it. And it obviously tried to avoid you. And I was kind of thinking about the thing about guide dogs is people tend to come up to you, they tend to talk to you. And I'm now thinking, this is perfect if you don't like other people, because it will continually, doesn't matter how many times they try and come at you, you're going to be away from them. They're going to take you away. That could be a good thing and a bad thing. I don't know. But it is interesting. You certainly wouldn't be able to, it seems like it's almost impossible to walk into something with it. And yeah, there's lots of questions, of course. And, one of the things I'm thinking about as well is, like, with a guide dog, for example, they're trained to, when they walk round an obstacle, so say a parked car or a bin on the pavement, it will actually, the dog will know to sort of give enough space for you as well. How does the device know that, based on the fact that you've got, it could be in either hand, it could be in left or right. So how does it know where it is in relation to you? These are all the kind of things that, and I don't know if we're maybe putting too much onto it at the moment, maybe asking too much, but these are questions that matter, right?
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. I'm kind of cautious here about, jumping in with 2 feet saying this is the answer to everything, because it's such early days. But I've got to say, my experience with the hands-on, as with so many people that I've spoken to that have gone hands-on, was, wow, this is so interesting. I'm excited by this. That's the first step. But also talking to Amos and Kyle, and also I got to say thanks to Amos and Kyle and Luke and Chris and Joel and all of them, the enthusiasm they've got, and they're really asking for what was wrong with it. And I thought that was very interesting. They want that feedback, right? And that's what makes me really positive about this as well, is the team behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm cannot wait to get hands-on with this in the area I live in, because ultimately that's the true test, isn't it? If it works in an area, if there's obstacles you always walk into, then, like I know, for example, I don't even know what it is, but there's some kind of box, very loud metallic box I continually walk into, and whatever it is, I'm sure I'm breaking it more and more every single time. I mean, the other day when I was out, I walked literally over someone who's a homeless person. I walked over them with my cane.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Because I had no idea they were there, and I almost fell on top of them because, they had their whatever out. And, I felt really bad about it. Now, a Glide would walk me round that person. I wouldn't have that situation. So, anybody who's, sitting around, or, you go to a park and someone's, people are lying around, you don't want to be walking through people. That's not ideal.
No. Well, even just that walk I talked about earlier, about walking to the shop, and getting around those cars which are always parked halfway on the sidewalk or the pavement, just something like that, and having the confidence to do that quick and easy, that's a big deal. It could be massive. It all comes down to training, as Amos and Kyle said there. There's a lot of training. There's a long way to go with the software. But definitely exciting.
I've got to say, I have listened to you when we were there, and then we talked afterwards. We talked that evening about it, and then on the next day. And I'll be honest, I didn't get the impression that you were as excited about it as necessarily as I was. And I wondered what that was about, because you would normally be quite like, "Wow, this is amazing!" Get really excited and start making weird noises, and you didn't do any of that. And stuff, So you didn't do any of that stuff, and bush and what have you.
Well, I'm trying. I'm making an actual conscious decision to try and lower my expectations on a lot of stuff. I mean, we've had our fingers burnt quite often recently with this promised of potential technology and what it could do for us, right? And I'm deliberately trying not to get overexcited too early, because this is early days. And you brought it up, Stephen, about they're taking a risk here in putting it into the hands of people at this stage, because people could have their first impression as, well, this doesn't work how I want it to, or this doesn't work how I expected.
Yeah.
And that's a risk of putting people off. But the fact that they're willing to put this in people's hands and just, okay, tell us what we can do better. I am excited by it. But I'm still very conscious of the early days of this.
Yeah, I pick up on that with Amos and Kyle because I thought, you know what? This is kind of unusual. And they admit that, look, they admit this themselves, right? They say this is unusual. This is something we don't normally do. Companies don't do this. They don't put a product out there and say, this is what we're building, and we want you to test it in its raw state, especially people who might only get the chance to try it once before they buy it. So this isn't going to be available in Best Buy. This is going to be something that is, you could maybe try at home, but or the chances of having one of these just lying around that you can go and test somewhere, it might be possible in a few years, but not initially. So, the first impression really matters. They clearly have the confidence in the product. They clearly do, because they wouldn't do this otherwise. And I have to say, I think it might be paying off, because the number of people, I mean, these are not people that are, you always expect marketing to play its part in this, You get these videos of the sad music playing and the strings or, the violins start, and suddenly it's, my life was over until I found this thing. And you think, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not getting any of that from Glidance. I mean, I'm sure that might come down the line and they'd be right to do it, but I'm actually hearing it from people who are telling us. They're telling us when we were at Site Village, people are saying, I tried it, I loved it, I was so excited, people queuing for hours.
The queues were amazing. That was the busiest Site Village I've ever been to. I think a lot of it was down to people wanting to go hands-on with Glide. I mean, poor old Kyle there was talked out.
He was. Yeah, that was the end of the day we spoke, and yeah, he was struggling by the end of it.
Yeah, they were trying to throw us out, as you could probably tell by the background
the clanking
noise.
And tape. I think at one point we were interrupted. We managed to edit that out, but we were kind of told, you have to shift. I did my traditional Scottish thing, though, saying 2 minutes, guys.
2 minutes. Yeah.
I got old. A little bit diva, a little bit Barbara Streisand, a little bit Celine Dion. But no, it was great.
But I've been asking around trying to find people that have gone hands-on and trying to find people who had anything really negative to say, because it is important. And as I said, they want the feedback. It's really difficult. It's difficult to find.
Well, that takes us to the final part of today's show, I guess, for us, because as we head up to the Q&A tomorrow, and Amos and Kyle will be back with us talking and answering your questions. And like I say, there are many of them, so thank you for sending them in. And they really appreciate the feedback, and they want to hear all of it. I want to take it to the next level. I want to get a panel together of people who've tried this device, but I don't want a bunch of people who are just going to say it's great. We absolutely want to hear that view and why, but I also want to hear from people who haven't enjoyed the experience. What has put you off, or what's put you off the idea of this kind of device? Because there's two questions here, right? Okay, so one is, did you like the device? I didn't like the device. Okay. But there are people who might say, I don't want that kind of device. And I want to hear from you as well. Why is that? What is it about it that would put you off? So I'm not seeking negativity, but I want to hear the other side of the story.
Yeah.
It's fair to our audience to do that. It's fair to us. It's fair to Glidance as well to hear the other side, because that will help the future development. It's the same with any company. I speak to a lot, and the reason I'm kind of jumping on this is because I speak to so many companies who don't want to hear the negativity. They don't want to hear the bad stuff because they think it will destroy their business. Actually, you know what? You got to look at Glidance here and say, actually, if you engage with our community, if you engage with it in a positive way and you take the feedback, you'll get further with us. Guaranteed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't mean your product will be a success, but it does mean that you'll get listened to, and it might help your product become a success.
Exactly,
but it's certainly going to have more success involving people than not. So,
Well, I've got, I mentioned having trust in the device itself. And I do have confidence that they are going to deliver on their promises on that. But more than that, I've got a lot of time and a lot of trust and confidence in Amos and the team.
Yeah.
I've got to say that as well. Everything they're doing so far is just seems to be hitting the right mark. And
well, let's see how the future goes, because we've still got a year to go. Lots could happen in a year, and goodness me, we've seen happen in the past couple of years how things have changed on a dime. So let's just wait and see. But I am excited about this. I wasn't excited about it initially. I thought, here we go again, another guide dog replacement. I don't know if it is. But
Yeah, I was surprised on your reaction. To be honest, you were very excited.
I was surprised. I think because I realised something like this, the value it could give to me and my independence. I don't get out anywhere near enough, and it's not. It's I'd like to tell people it's because I just like to be a hermit and stay at home. That's not true. That's not really true.
No.
I do like getting out, but I don't enjoy going out, and I want to enjoy going out, and I want something to help me do that. So
As we
if this
all
is
do.
it, absolutely. If that's what this can do, then great. But like I say, I want to hear your views on from all sides, and we're going to put together a panel. If you want to be on that panel, if you want to come join us and share your thoughts, even if you're in the middle of it, kind of thinking, I don't know, I'm a little bit on the fence, or you love it, or you don't love it, and you don't like this idea at all, then we want to get you on our panel because we're going to be having a broad range of views on it. So get involved in all the usual ways. And tomorrow, special episode as we talk for the entire hour with Kyle and Amos as they join us to answer your questions. That is it for today. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to the guys from Glide and Sight Village, of course, for hosting us, and also to the great news, of course, about Be My Eyes on Meta Ray-Ban glasses. It's been another amazing week. And that's it for today. We'll catch you tomorrow. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.